Yes, it is wake up time, folks, and let's check in with the Christo-fascist, Christian nationalist, theocratic threat to American democracy.
So you see, I also call myself a Christian nationalist, and that's not a bad word.
Wash your mouth out with soap.
Your dirty mouth needs a bath.
O Lord, bless this thy hand grenade, that with it thou mayst blow thine enemies to tiny bits in thy mercy. God will make you pay. Smite them!
Smite them. Okay, so we are going to head back to our favorite outlet in the world, and that is The Atlantic. Atlantic. Remember, this is primarily run, or at least owned, by Steve Jobs' widow. We should maybe check the
I'm looking at
Harvard.
it right now. Yep.
You're looking at it? Who owns?
Lauren Powell Jobs owns The Atlantic through her for-profit corporation, Emerson Collective.
Oh, it's just 100% ownership.
100% Lauren Powell Jobs.
That is rare.
Mm-hmm,
to have
it is,
yeah.
It's private, private for profit.
Interesting. Okay. Well, let's see what they have to say. This is coming from theatlantic.com. How extremist gun culture is trying to co-opt the Rosary. The Rosary, Gonzo. And there's a lot here. I'm going to try my best. Oh, we did not grab the archived version.
I had it here.
Why do I not have it?
I don't know.
You got to remember to put these into our
document. I thought I did.
Here.
Go look at the doc. I'm pretty sure there's a... Oh, maybe not. Maybe
I just pulled it up. It's okay. I'm going to get my own here. Now, we love going to the Atlantic. Now, I love going there because it being 100% owned by the same company and by the same woman primarily is an extremely rare thing when it comes to mainstream media. And it allows for some very interesting sort of back and forth on policy, I guess, like the policy of news reporting, these stances taken. When you've got like a corporation, like a public corporation, it seems that there's more consistent reporting, not even reporting, more consistent messaging. Yeah. Well, I can't think of a better word than that.
Yeah, I'm looking at the statistics here, and they boast. Let's see, what is this? I think they boast here. It says about 34 million average monthly visits on their website, The Atlantic. So,
okay,
I mean, pretty large audience.
But when it's kind of owned by a single person, it's
you
very
get to really
interesting.
shape the narrative.
You can kind of flippy floppy. You can have, because I would say out of all the mainstream outlets that we cover, The Atlantic has sort of the least consistent. They kind of go back and forth on who they're defending, what type of ideas they're promoting.
Right.
But we're switching back over here to something that will sound quite familiar. And it reads like this: just as the AR-15 rifle has become a sacred object for Christian nationalists in general.
What are you talking about? Right from the get-go. What?
Right from the get-go. Now,
no, the AR-15 rifle is like a sacred object for the controlling elite who would like for everybody to be afraid of those who wield such weapons.
So this is going to be a theme in this article, which is it is almost a rhetorical spell being cast rather than reporting facts. So the opening sentence, just as the AR-15 rifle has become a sacred object for Christian nationalists in general, and then it goes on to the next part. But making a statement that the AR-15 has become a sacred object for Christian nationalists. Now, a I guess I don't really know a lot of Christian nationalists personally, because I don't know anybody who would call AR-15 an actual sacred object. Now, I could see how rhetorically...
It was blessed by the Pope. The Black Pope blessed it.
I could see how rhetorically you could make the case of like, just as the AR-15 rifle seems to have become a sacred object, you know,
Sure.
or refer to it sort of metaphorically, because what they're really trying to say, I believe what they're trying to say is like, these Christian nationalists love their guns, you know, and but they say that it has become a sacred object, obviously showing that the person who wrote this has never spent a day in an actual authentic sort of religious relationship with Christianity, but it is sort of an academic knowledge or a, you know, narrative knowledge of Christianity, because I don't think any actual Christian, nationalist or not, would say that an AR-15 is a sacred object. But that will become a theme in this whole thing. This sort of misunderstanding of Christianity, except for in sort of like a metaphorical or academic sense. So keep that in mind as we go. But these are the people who are shaping the narrative. Just as the AR-15 rifle has become a sacred object for Christian nationalists in general, the Rosary has acquired a militaristic meaning for the radical traditional, or rad-trad, Catholics. On this extremist fringe, rosary beads have been woven into a conspiratorial politics and absolutist gun culture. These armed radical traditionalists have taken up a spiritual notion that the rosary can be a weapon in the fight against evil and turned it into something dangerously literal. That is a very... Now, I think we'll just keep moving because
we're never going to get through this thing if we keep responding
right.
to every sentence. But yeah,
and here's
I
the
feel
thing. You and I have read this whole article.
Yeah.
And we know what comes next.
Yeah.
And that sentence doesn't even make sense with how the rest of the article goes, but that's okay. Let's keep going. Their social media pages are saturated with images of rosaries draped over firearms, warriors in prayer, Deus Vult, that's God wills it, crusader memes, and exhortations for men to rise up and become church militants. Influencers on platforms such as Instagram share posts referencing everyday carry and GAT check. GAT is slang for firearm, they say.
Thanks, Atlantic.
Yes.
Was that one of the things that Lauren Powell Jobs was like, what is GAT? Tell me what is GAT? Let me know what GAT is.
This is the outlet that did the stop putting laser beams in Joe Biden's eyes meme breakdown.
Right.
So you really understand their sort of point of view here. And GAT checks that include soldiers' battle beads, handguns, and assault rifles. One artist posts illustrations of his favorite Catholic saints, clergy, and influencers toting AR-15 style rifles labeled Sanctum Rosarium, alongside violently homophobic screeds that are celebrated by social media accounts with thousands of followers. That is just a lot, huh?
There's a lot there.
Just a lot of stuff in there. The theologian and historian Massimo Fagioli has described a network of conservative Catholic bloggers and commentary organizations as a Catholic cyber militia that actively campaign against LGBTQ acceptance in the church. Catholic cyber militia is interesting because what they're talking about would in other places just be termed sort of like cyberbullying, but if you put cyber militia, it makes it sound much more violent and dangerous. Yeah. These rad trad rosary as weapon memes represent a social media diffusion of such messaging, and they work to integrate ultra conservative Catholicism with other aspects of online far right culture. The phenomenon might be tempting to dismiss as mere trolling or merchandising, and ironical provocations based on traditionalist Catholic symbols do exist, but the far right's constellation of violent, racist, and homophobic online milieus are well documented for providing a pathway to radicalization and real-world terrorist attacks.
I like our well documented is hyperlinked to The New Yorker. Well documented source, The New Yorker.
Right, exactly. The Rosary in these hands is anything but holy. Ooh.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, yeah, if you ask an evangelical, no rosary is holy, but
Sure.
it's just an evangelical. Yeah, okay. But for millions of believers, the beads, which provide an aide memoire for a sequence of devotional prayers, are a widely recognized symbol of Catholicism and a source of strength. And many take genuine sustenance from Catholic theology's concept of the church militant and the tradition of regarding the rosary as a weapon against Satan. As Pope Francis said in a 2020 address, there is no path to holiness without spiritual combat. And
Combat?
So violent, Pope Francis. And Francis is only one of many church officials who have endorsed the idea of the rosary as an armament in that fight. Okay.
Wait a minute.
So
hold on.
there's a little bit of translation going on here. And to our Catholic listeners, which I know there are some, please forgive us if we do not have the best translation from sort of Catholic speak into Protestant speak here. But they basically just said it outright in the Atlantic here that, you know, the rosary used for prayer is considered a weapon against Satan, you know, in pretty
Spiritual terms,
simplistic Christian terms. It's basically just a physical object representing, you know, prayer as a weapon.
prayer. Yeah.
And look, anybody who's been a Christian for any amount of time, I've grown up in the church. I've heard prayer as a weapon my entire life. And it is spoken of this way because prayer is sort of a weapon in a spiritual battle. If you want to defeat the devil, or you want to, affect the spiritual world, or you want to do these things, what is your weapon besides prayer? Nothing. Prayer is the spiritual weapon. Now, of course, nowadays, especially in this Christian nationalist, freak out fest, the very word weapon is automatically substituted for ideas of guns, specifically.
Yeah, AR-15s.
Exactly. Physical, actual weapons. And even when the explicit words are prayer is a weapon, or in this case, the rosary is a weapon to fight spiritual battles, when a secular person hears this and writes an article for The Atlantic, it is immediately translated to like a
physical
weapon that can kill people as well as the devil. I don't even know if I'm saying that in the most articulate possible way, but this concept of spiritual warfare happening in a spiritual realm with prayer as the weapon is completely either ignored or misunderstood entirely.
Well, it's helping paint that narrative. I mean, there's obviously a presupposition of this author that, this whole Christian nationalist thing is a threat, and so I think the point you're trying to make here also is that the Pope specifically used the word combat. He said, There's no path to holiness without spiritual combat. Right. Oh, combat. So, rosary being a weapon against Satan and prayer. We're in this combat, so it must be the same thing as, because if you just take the word at face value, we're talking combat. It's a gun. It's a gun. Rosaries are guns.
Right. Exactly. I mean, it's really interesting. And I know it's even hard for us to kind of accurately articulate the sort of, I don't know about deception is the right word, but the
narrative
mistranslation.
Crafting.
It's simply a mistranslation of
it's all,
the
like
idea.
You said, I think it's like a spell to make people believe.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm thinking.
The rosary is some kind, or people using rosary to pray as some kind of like, oh, this person must be, the rosary up here, but then in the back of his truck or something, he's got an AR-15. He's going to blow you away if you don't bow to white God or whatever.
And I think I pointed
is.
out what the problem is. A secular person reading this, there is not a moment when they take a second to say like, well, in Christian theology, you know, to do battle with the devil on a spiritual level, you pray.
We wrestle not against flesh and blood.
Exactly.
There's a passage there, but let's not talk about that.
There is no reference to what a spiritual battle might mean to a secular person. And it is the omission of that I believe is the crux on which they are building this case. Now let's keep moving. In mainstream Catholicism, the rosary as weapon is not an intrinsically harmful interpretation of the sacramental, and this symbolism has a long history. In the 1930s and 40s, the ultramontane Catholic student publication Jeunesse étudiante catholique regularly used the concept to rally the faithful. Again, the concept. But the modern radical traditionalist Catholic movement, which generally rejects the Second Vatican Council's reforms, is far outside the majority opinion of the Roman Catholic Church in America. Many prominent American Catholic bishops advocate for gun control, and after the Uvalde school shooting, Bishop Daniel Flores of Brownsville, Texas, lamented the way some Americans sacralize death's instruments.
Oh, okay, please.
Militia culture. This is where it gets good. Militia culture and fetishism of Western civilization and masculinist anxieties have become mainstays of the far right in the U.S. And rad-trad Catholics, I gotta admit, rad-trad is a pretty cool name. Yeah. Rad-trad Catholics have now taken up residence in this company. Their social media accounts commonly promote accelerationist, there's that word again, and survivalist content. Survivalists being along with combat medical and tactical training, as well as memes depicting balaclava-clad gunmen that draw on the terror wave or warcore aesthetic that is popular in far-right circles. Like such networks, radical traditional Catholics sustain their own cottage industry of goods and services that reinforce the radicalization. Listen to this.
It's all about money.
Yeah. Rosaries are common among the merchandise on offer. Ooh, weapons. Some made of cartridge casings and complete with gunmetal finish crucifixes.
What?
It's just a cool rosary, man, made of bullets and gunmetal Jesus. One Catholic online store, which describes itself as, quote, dedicated to offering battle-ready products and manuals to stand firm against the tactics of the devil, a New Testament reference, sells replicas of the rosaries issued to American soldiers during the First World War as combat rosaries. Discerning consumers can also buy a concealed carry permit for their combat rosary. Come on. That's cute. That's cute. And a sacramental storage box resembling an ammunition can.
I don't see a huge problem with that.
No, I mean, it's
kind
just
of a clever product.
It is a clever product.
Some clever Etsy store product.
Exactly. It's just kind of like a, if you're into guns and stuff, you can get these fun little things. But
you can't do anything with this.
But they're
physically
talking about it as if it is as dangerous as the bullets itself or the armaments itself or whatever. And the very appreciation of like a military aesthetic is equated to being some sort of radical extremist. In 2016, the Pontifical Swiss Guard accepted a donation of combat rosaries during a ceremony at the Vatican. Their commander described the gift as the most powerful weapon that exists on the market. Again, just literally talking about prayer as a weapon, and that is used as like a case for this craziness. The militarism also glorifies a warrior mentality and notions of manliness and male strength. You got the toxic masculinity in here.
Yeah.
This conflation of the masculine and the military is rooted in wider anxieties about Catholic manhood. I love the sort of like Freudian analysis of, this is rooted in the anxieties about Catholic manhood. The idea that it is in crisis has some currency among senior church figures and lay organizations. And it gives an example, and I'm going to skip it.
Yeah.
The Rosary
the Knights of Columbus.
they mention.
detail.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to. You don't have to mention
they
it,
just mention like some of the again tying it to sort of world dominating Catholic wars and crusades and things like that. The Rosary as a weapon also gives a rad trad Catholic men both a distinctive signifier within Christian nationalism and a sort of membership pass to the movement.
What? Who's in charge of this membership?
A rosary is apparently a membership pass to Christian nationalism. As the sociologists Andrew L. Whitehead and Samuel L. Perry note in the Taking America Back for God, Christian Nationalism in the United States, Catholics used to be regarded as enemies by Christian nationalists, and anti-Catholic nativism runs deep in American history. Today, Catholics are a growing contingent of Christian nationalism. Yeah, people forget that. The KKK is, or was, I don't know what their current thing is, but traditionally anti-Catholic, Sure, they were anti-black, anti-Jew,
anti-everything.
They were also anti-Catholic. You don't hear about that much because it's not very useful in sort of mainstream culture. But helping unite these former rivals is a quasi-theological doctrine of what Perry and another sociologist, Philip S. Gorski, have called righteous violence against political enemies regarded as demonic or satanic, be they secularists, progressives, or Jews. Okay, they're just throwing Jews in there. The hostility toward liberalism and secularism inherent in the traditionalist Catholicism is also pronounced within Christian nationalist circles, no longer stigmatized by evangelical nationalists. Yeah, see? Catholic imagery now blends freely with staple alt-right memes that romanticize ancient Rome or idealize the traditional patriarchal family. Oh no! Idealized traditional family values.
Yeah, I mean, they must be stopped, Basil. They are destroying our country. Haven't you read the papers?
Yeah. All these traditional families. Some doctrinal differences and divisions remain.
What an astute observation, Atlantic.
That's what I'm saying. That is the funniest part about this. Is obviously written by somebody who literally only has an academic view of this quasi-invented narrative, as is evident by the fact that he quotes several authors and sociologists and not actually, he didn't interview anybody. He didn't talk to anybody.
Not using any scripture either. Which,
not using any scripture.
You could do that. If they had done their homework, they could have easily weaponized some passages to make their points. But yeah.
Many radical traditional Catholic men maintain the hardline position that other forms of Christianity are heretical and hold that Catholics alone adhere to the one true church. Christian nationalism's nativism and its predilection for great replacement theory alienate some radical traditional Catholics who are not white or who are not born in the United States, and deep veins of anti-Catholicism persist among far-right Protestants. Yet, the convergence with the Christian nationalism is cemented in common causes, such as hostility toward abortion rights advocates, and then it kind of just goes into
all this stuff.
Yeah, they agree about...
They hate gays, all this stuff.
Yeah. So, which is funny, because again, from inside any of these actual Christian traditions, like the divides are much more pronounced than, I mean, the theological even
Yes.
basis for salvation, like the number one thing, is so removed from one another in some very clear-cut ways. But they both hate gays, and they both hate
they're coming together. Oh no, the Catholics and the
rights,
evangelicals have united in their effort to hate gays and
transphobics,
hate
homophobics.
the trans
They can
and-
get past their sort of eternal battle
and their love for guns. They both love guns,
right?
but the rosaries too.
Yeah, and it ends with this. Catholics are taught to love and forgive their enemies, that to do otherwise is a sin. But the extremist understanding of spiritual warfare overrides that command. This would be another great example, a time for them to go into it. Oh, will they try? Let's see. To do battle with Satan, whose influence in the world is, according to Catholic demonology, real and menacing, is to deploy violence for deliverance and redemption. Spiritual warfare, deploying violence for deliverance and redemption. The battle beads culture of spiritual warfare permits radical traditional Catholics literally to demonize their political opponents and regard the use of armed force against them as sanctified. The sacramental rosary isn't just a spiritual weapon, but one that comes with physical ammunition. Ooh. So
Scary.
It's interesting because up until pretty much this exact point, the mainstream has done a very good job of pinpointing Christian nationalism as an evangelical Protestant movement. Problem. And they are now not even attempting to understand the term spiritual warfare as it is used within the church. At least the Protestant church. I guess I've never actually been to a Catholic mass, so who knows? Maybe they talk about spiritual warfare in this way. But I don't think so. I think I would have heard of it if that's the case. So anyways, lumping them all together, the threat of Christian nationalism is far and wide, and the group, this is similar to what they did with general wokeism or like racism. You keep widening the goalposts. You make it easier and easier to include someone in the Christian nationalist group. They did that with racism. They did that with transphobia. They did that with, radical right-wing extremists, stuff like that.
Yeah. I think Truth Spirit in the chat mentioned what I was going to mention was that the author of this article probably watched too much of the Boondock Saints.
Yes.
Have you ever watched the Boondock Saints?
Yes.
It's a vigilante film of Catholics taking out criminals.
I was cruising through Twitter's, I think Christian nationalism was
it's trending. It was trending today,
again.
I think. Yeah,
earlier today. And I clicked into there and it was, pretty much just like Boondock Saints
memes, yeah.
Upon Boondock Saints meme, especially with the rosary. The rosary was included in it. They would show their little rosaries.
Got the blood all over it. Yeah, the whole deal. So this is interesting predictive programming in hindsight here. So
yeah, and it's working.
It's definitely
working pretty well, as it always does.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. There's a little update on how the group of Christian nationalists who are going to take over the country and theocrats are going to, enslave all the secularists and stuff like this, damaging American democracy. The group widens and becomes more threatening day by day. And all it takes is somebody who just simply does not understand a simple term to go ahead and write an article about it in the Atlantic, and boom.
It's a psyop.